on in. If you're coming, you're coming. Let's go.
Let's go. I'll go grab them, John. My wife tells me to flush. I'll go grab them.
Okay.
Who are you grabbing?
There's still about 12, 15 people.
You see the people out there.
Ricardo will do it excellent.
Those dessert bars, they're too tasty.
You got to bring those trays in. They'll follow the trays.
Got the whistle.
Now Ricardo's doing it. Ricardo will do it. See, they're coming in already.
Do any of you need water? You have? Okay.
Right.
Like 110 decibels.
That says pound provided person.
Do any of you need a water while you're
It's a good idea to have. Let's put them up there. Just so we have.
Should
Oh, please. You do. I'm trying to organize that.
I'm going to put it here and I can get it for you.
I still my ears
I'm going to message Parker, see if you can reach it.
All right, so we're going to get started here. But first, just some notes. After the panel, we're going to have another speaker, Dr. Federico. Oh, I'm going to butcher this name.
Shimarilla.
There we go.
Shimarilla.
Shimarilla. And then we have a student presentation at 4:35. It's a capstone project. It's on endpoint management. So let's begin this panel. A CXO panel on manufacturing. Go figure. So for many of us, John Johnson doesn't need an introduction, but for those of you that don't know, he is founder and CEO of Aligned Security, providing CISO services. He spent 18 years as security architect at John Deere, and 20 years, 20 plus years, you've been involved in the CISO community.
Something like that.
Yeah, so John, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, my last 20 years has mostly been in manufacturing, so it seems appropriate to moderate a panel on cybersecurity and manufacturing. Although it's not just cyber, right? We saw the OT panel earlier, that the discussion around the physical aspects, the safety and availability aspects, and not just relying on the CIA triad. So we have a great panel today, and we'll start off. We have Ricardo LaFosse at the Kraft Heinz Company, and then Victor is being replaced by, this is Victor 2.0. This is Chris Carlos, who pen tested his way onto the panel.
That was reverse social engineering for the record. Yeah.
Still counts.
Yeah.
Parker Schmidt, CEO of NetThunder, and Laura Ilan, Senior Director of Cybersecurity here at MxD. So let me just ask you guys, I say that inclusively, yes. Tell me what your role is at your company, how it ties in with manufacturing, or in a previous life, your manufacturing background, and where you and your company are on your journey towards securing the manufacturing environment. So who'd like to start?
I can start.
Great.
Let the caboose start. So, hi everyone. Laura Ilan. I am the Senior Director of Cybersecurity and IT here at MxD. In my role here, I have two jobs. One of them is to actually do the hard work in securing our internal organization. The more fun part of my job is this part of my job, which is external facing, and to support our Institute's goals with helping to connect and secure U.S. manufacturing. So we are the Digital Manufacturing Institute, and I hope many of you had the opportunity to take our factory floor tour. It's a very fun place to work. Our goal here is to help manufacturers understand cybersecurity, small and medium manufacturers, all the way up to large manufacturers, so very many different perspectives, many different audiences. I am an engineer and started from a compliance perspective. So what got me here in my career is starting with electrical engineering, safety compliance, and software compliance, and that moved into software safety, so safety instrumented systems, but the safety and compliance auditing compliance. I did a stint in product development and actually had to make things on the manufacturing floor, and then in the last time flies when you're having fun. 10 or so years of my life, I've been a part of a team that does product ethical hacking and cybersecurity audit. So, thanks.
Well, yeah, that tour of MxD out there, you get some really cool stuff. It's a really cool program here, so it was fun to see. So I'm Parker, so I'm the founder at NetThunder, and so as a technical founder, I kind of am negotiating between the tech teams and the developers and the business, and so that's generally my primary role. Got into manufacturing because realized that misconfigurations can really punish a manufacturer more than regular IT, and working in zero change environments, and so we came in there because one of our good market fits is paranoid manufacturers who never want to change anything, but also want to be completely secure and not want to spend any money on it or trust detection at all.
How's that working for them?
It's gotten it to work, but the main rule for us is computers configure computers. Humans don't do that, so we're just trying to get the humans out of root shells, because people are generally make mistakes in root shells. Like I've done in the past where one bad command on a switch and you have a line outside your office, and well, no guys, it's all the same issue. Yes, it's my mistake, but yet no, all of them are related. So trying to get out of that world.
Hi, my name's Chris Carlos. I'm clearly the person who doesn't necessarily belong up here, but that's kind of been my entire career. I'm a penetration tester. I'm a red teamer. I'm the guy you don't really want and expect to see in your office, but then he's suddenly there and no one's too happy about it. Who's not in audit. But the real reason I'm here, necessarily on the stage, but today is because as a penetration tester, as a professional hacker, I'm always looking to kind of drive home the impact, the importance of the security testing that we do. And IT and cybersecurity tends to be, like, a lot of organizations I've seen, highly siloed. And those are the gaps we look for as attackers. We look for the places where, cyber IT isn't talking to OT. There's not talking to, building physical security. That communication breaks down. Who's in charge of stuff? Who's responsible for stuff? Well, you're going to figure it out when I drop a hot mess of trouble on your lap because I, found some places where things got forgot. So I like to go and I like to talk to people about, talking with people who don't necessarily think about security, and bring it to the forefront of people's minds, because ultimately I think we're all kind of responsible for it.
Thanks, Victor. Ricardo LaFosse, CISO Kraft Heinz. I fell into manufacturing. This is my first manufacturing job. Also, my first 60 days, I took down 500 HMIs. Thank you. Pretending that normal security tools can also work in OT environments. Manufacturing is a very interesting spot. I thought local government was, how do I say this nicely? Difficult. Manufacturing has its own difficulties, and a lot of it has to do with the people. Technology is a piece of it, but being able to be collaborative and work with the engineer and the OT and have them identify and realize the value security brings, but also trusting and instilling that we're not going to take down operations after I took down operations. But giving that trust is really key in building that collaborative partnership within OT. So it's a learning for me. Again, been here 2.5 years, and I learn something new every day.
All right, so building relationships, very important. Somebody was applauding, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So it's very important to build bridges, not burn bridges, right? You've got manufacturing typically run by a VP of manufacturing or engineers. They've come from a different QA world. They actually build things that are physical, and they're very sensitive to having you take their stuff down, right? So how do you get the IT folks and the OT folks to play well together? What inroads have you been successful with?
All right, I'll start. Outside of burning the first bridge by taking out all the HMIs, pretend that didn't happen.
Well, you set the bar low.
Yeah, I set the bar really low. It's understanding how operations works and really understanding what digital manufacturing means to them. We're a very old school manufacturer that are starting to really bleed into digital manufacturing. We're traditionally having an internet circuit at a plant. Why? You want to make sure everything's air gap, but now you want sensors, you want efficiencies, you want to pull the data and make analytics and actually derive value from what you're building. And understanding their outcome, you're a business partner to help them achieve their outcomes. Get there early enough and really build that relationship with them. They understand and bring you to the forefront to help them get there. But it varies from individual to individual. What I've noticed is OT is a very personal space. They protect their environment for a good reason, going back to the operations piece. But sitting there and understanding where they came from, where they've had issues in the past of IT, just forget the security piece, and building those inroads with them goes a long way. For example, we started doing joint architecture reviews from a security perspective where it had an operational benefit and not really increasing security, but it gave them that goodwill that we're here to be a partner. Victor?
Coming at, obviously, from the pen testing side, it's often a matter of scope for penetration test, and I've heard it a lot. Touch our servers and workstations all you want, but we're going to exclude certain systems at certain ranges from testing. It's valid. It's an intelligent thing to do. And my ask has always been, if we weren't having this conversation where I agreed not to hack things that are critical to your business because you asked me politely, how would you plan to stop me from doing that?
It's kind of a risk, isn't it? I mean, if they go, well, don't touch it because it'll fall down and die. Well, during normal operations, what if there's something that's misconfigured or an accident, and all of a sudden now you've taken things down because you don't have a resilient system? Yes. But if I do a ping sweep, I'm going to knock them out.
But playing devil's advocate, if I already know it's in bad shape, where is the additional benefit of adding a pen test except revalidating that there's an issue? I already know that there's an issue. Maybe I don't have a path forward, and a pen test might help validate it, but if the business understands, IT understands, you just need to work on prioritization. Where's the value of taking down operations?
Well, I think with pen test, the red team perspective, even if you don't need to test and say, hey, this is vulnerable, in the OT side, change management and disaster recovery is just 1,000 times worse. That's really the difference between IT and OT, is changes are even harder. So you have to be able to say, okay, we can't apply a traditional security method like patching that Windows box. It's got to run Windows 95. That machine's going to last 40 years, and it makes the business money. You're not going to change it. So how do you do it? You have to have any mitigating controls or compensating controls, whatever the word of the day is for that. But the best way to actually make controls is go in and say, okay, I'm being an attacker. How am I actually going to get this? How hard is this going to be? And so I think when you're designing OT security, you almost want a red teamer there. And I mean, saying this bias is red teamers in the center of the panel. Of course, we're going to say you want a red teamer, but in reality, it's, okay, a phishing attack is way easier than Stuxnet when people say, oh, the air gap won't suffice. Well, in a lot of cases, it will suffice, because if someone's using Stuxnet, okay, it doesn't matter that your Windows box is not patched. They're probably dropping ODE anyway, so do you really care? And I think you need to have that mindset of practical versus theory, so you can say yes to the business on accepting smaller risks.
I have a different perspective on the OT-IT separation. I think in the U.S., pretty close to 300,000 manufacturers are small and medium manufacturers, and a significant portion of them are manufacturing plants with less than 20 people. The OT guy and the IT guy they got to like each other because they're oftentimes the same person. Or you'll have the manufacturing person, and the IT person is the, you know, the nephew who comes in on summer breaks from college. So in a lot of small environments, this kind of tension doesn't exist. It's a different problem, and the problem is you oftentimes don't have a deep bench of IT. You almost always have people who know what's on the plant floor, understand the processes, but also are not touching them because they've been working fine for 20 years. So don't touch them. So it's a different perspective on that, and I think that is an area where there are opportunities to educate as well, and to be able to understand where some of the best practices from IT can actually benefit the manufacturing floor.
So we have,
100% with you, by the way, and a lot of times MSPs don't know OT very well, and so they're having to outsource this to people who are trying to do IT for an office, and that disaster gets even worse. So just 100% that.
we had a question
Ooh, we
out
have a
here.
question.
I do. So I understand that old equipment, security weakness was a feature, and it's baked in and you can't really do much about it, but is new equipment made differently to be secure and updatable and resilient? Did they get over that?
It depends.
Yeah, I can talk to that without naming any names. We'll speak under the cloud of anonymity. There are good OT security standards in place, ISA 99, the IEC 62443 series of standards for both process and operations technology. They've been in place for quite a while, and so the body of knowledge is there. Do new manufacturers of this equipment follow those standards? Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But I think that we know just by looking at, you know, I've got an email in my inbox right now from the, you know, eight new operations technology vulnerabilities in, you know, from ICS CERT. So I think that the practice of applying it both at the product development level and then both in the integration level still has opportunities for improvement. And it's not just in the factory floor, it has to be the entire supply chain, the devices, the integrators, the operators, the people who manage these devices. So I think we have opportunities for improvement.
We're looking at lots of different types of equipment in the manufacturing space. And so some of it is more on the traditional IT side, HMIs and, you know, workstations and things like that. You have some that run software, so they're not the PLCs, but they're running software that hasn't been updated in 20 years because it works. And there's only one manufacturer in the world that has this software, and we're just going to keep running it as long as it works. And so, yeah, how do you, in some cases, the ability to securely, cryptographically do remote updates and patch and things is a good goal, but not always achievable. So do we have any advice on practical ways that you protect your OT environment? Do you segment your OT environment? Do you have particular equipment that you use, particular policies and procedures that are maybe different from IT?
I'll take the first stab. So it's, believe it or not, network segmentation still works really well for the bulk of stuff. And it sounds really simple in OT, separating OT and IT if you haven't done it, is horrible, painful. But when you get to that state, you have a solid foundation now. So once you have that solid foundation, process is one of the best defenses as well. So changing default passwords, making sure when you have a third party remoting in, using Bastion hosts, MFA, you just make it as difficult as possible to get into the OT to do normal day-to-day support. And then on top of that, start doing detection. It's really difficult to put agents in OT, extremely difficult, especially with the older environments. And also, some of the older switches can be very finicky. You're like, oh, just do a spam port. No, that switch will explode if you put a spam port on it. So understanding the OT environment and knowing those strategic areas where to start doing the detection and start bubbling up those analytics to another central station, start deriving some value and alerting from it. Again, it's not pretty, but it's a work in progress when you have lots of legacy technology and working towards trying to modernize it. Going back to digital manufacturing, how are we going to start doing more of these sensors? How are we going to start doing more cloud-enabled stuff? Carve out different enclaves. The old school secure enclaves are back. They're hot. They're awesome. And being able to have those in a secure manner and have different enclaves where you have data going in but not out, and just understanding how those flows work in your environment is a good step without ripping out technology. And those manufacturing, you can't rip out technology. The ROI could be a 30-year ROI for some of those lines. So you build defenses and start thinking more outside the box.
Yeah, and I think to fascinating. I was at a Fortune 100 manufacturer, I won't mention, and our factories, and this was, a decade ago, our factories, we literally had a guy that would have to walk around and fill out a spreadsheet to figure out what everything you have. So knowing what your assets are to work with, and then the other piece that I'm hearing is understanding those business processes. What are the business process? How does the shop floor work, right? How does the factory work? What is their mission? How can you support their mission? Parker?
Yeah, so and I just absolutely knowing your assets, very hard to do that. And so, of course, my way is have a computer do as much as possible. But on top of that, I think with segmentation, maybe call me paranoid, but I like in manufacturing, I think take it a step further. Separate servers, separate switches. If you got a VPN between them, maybe, but it should be an exception, not the rule, because one exception is going to just blow out of control. And there's nothing wrong with bringing a USB drive between networks if you have to versus a connection all the time with someone who's authorized to do that and moves them back and forth in sneaker nets.
Just don't use the one you found in the parking lot today.
Right. Oh no, don't do that. No, one that will destroy itself if you don't put the right password. There's a lot of neat tools there, but the other piece too with your question, which I think comes in here, is it's really hard to think about computers what they were like 30 years ago. Manufacturing machines, they're designed to last 40 years. They might cost you $500,000 for a lot of the small businesses, and making networking rules to segment. When you're a 20-person shop, you're not going to do that. You got to keep it separate. And a lot of these machines, it's okay, the newer stuff might work well, be running Windows 11 for a while or some Linux distro that's very static, but there's no way to predict where computers are going to go in 30 years. So separate, true separate. Take it. Go.
I like to think of it as the Jurassic Park syndrome, is that we oftentimes want to connect stuff together just because we can without really understanding the technology of it. So I do advocate having a business case. That's one of the things I think we've seen in the general ecosystem with IIoT. I am a cybersecurity person and a Luddite, which means I don't connect anything in my house to the internet at all, even though I know I can, and it would make my life easier. So I think one of the things that's going to be important is if you want to digitize your environment, if you want to bring that forward from legacy equipment, and we have some great examples on the factory floor, you should know the answer why. You should know, what the return on investment is. You should do it slowly, and you should be able to manage it and understand how that's going to affect your business operation. Because at the end of the day, I think we see a lot of the environments you're talking about, a massive amount of data, all going all in the same place, and they don't use any of it. They expend a tremendous amount of effort, segmenting it and protecting it, and creating different kinds of warehousing and things like that. But I think it's really important to start small, and I do absolutely support start small, segment, figure out why you're doing it, and then do it in incremental ways to gain know-how.
In Parker's defense, I think the answer is not take your manufacturing and move it to the cloud.
Oh God, no.
I was the last 2 years at Campbell Soup, and in our factories, another food company, we found that that's where our hardware was. The rest of the company, IT, had moved to the cloud. We were a very cloud-first company. But in manufacturing, we had, you know, ESX clusters, and we had the servers and the workstations and all the things were part of the business process, and that was in the factory environment, which is firewalled off from the IT environment. So,
Ooh,
Also
devil's
fixing
advocate.
your internet connection too, waiting for the cable guy for your 20-person manufacturing company because your factory's not working. That's another cloud risk there no one talks about. Oh yeah, can you be here between the hours of 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. all of November?
All right, Mr. Hacker, Chris.
What do you got?
All right. So I always hear, yes, I love the idea of physical separation, but there's also something called a budget.
Yeah.
So, from a hacker's perspective, yep, physical separation's great, but I still find a lot of value with logical separation. How difficult do you see it as a hacker to bypass like an ESX hypervisor? Is it difficult? Is it easy? I know this is a very general question, but I want to reinforce that logical controls have a very strong place when you don't have the appropriate budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, every junior penetration tester at some point says you should do network segmentation, and they just throw it in the report like, yeah, that sounds good, not realizing it's a 12-year, $40 million project they just threw in as a one-liner. Having someone like me in your environment doing evil stuff, it's like you hired a new network administrator, and he doesn't know where shit is and how everything works and how everything's put together, but he has fantastic power to access whatever he wants and go wherever he wants to go. And so if I have a target of getting somewhere, I'll get there. I'll read your SharePoint, because you probably put instructions on what I need to know and what I need to compromise and where I need to get to go.
So that's private keys too.
Yeah.
it's important to document everything.
Yes, thank you for documenting stuff. SharePoint is maybe one of the biggest vulnerabilities. Like, not that I'm hacking the SharePoint, it exists. That's the vulnerability. So, yeah, if there's a way to get there, if it involves popping a particular guy's computer and then like tunneling through his session into something that I need to tunnel through, we can get there. It's the point where that detection thing that you mentioned earlier on, there's a saying like blue team needs to be right all the time, red team needs to be right once. It's the reverse is also true. Like, I need to avoid all the detections, and it only takes one wrong, Nmap scan to get me lit up, and now everyone's looking for me, kind of thing. Yeah, it can, it's a hassle. It's a pain. I don't want to do it. I love flat networks where I can just touch anything that I want. They're delicious. But I understand. Budgets.
Before we go to Parker, I just want to bring it back to the two on this end here. Don't you think, and I think that Ricardo brought this up initially, that you don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. You want to start off with some good basic things that are achievable, like disable the default password, change the default passwords on the stuff that you buy, right? You don't need manufacturer default passwords. Put in some IP restrictions for those things that do need to reach out specifically with a whitelist to something on the internet, because that's how that system has to operate. But not everything needs that, right? So, kind of figure out what things are necessary and don't immediately turn all of that off, but try to support that and work on the basic hygiene as you figure out your plan. I'm sure that, well, from day one, you decided to break everything, and then you found out where it was, right? So
Welcome to the team.
And close the back door. I can't tell you how many small manufacturing environments that I had to sign something to get in the front, and then the person escorted me onto the plant floor, and the back door's open.
Well, that's where you go out and smoke on your break,
Yeah.
right? You need to be able to get back in. You got to prop that open with the
There's-
Let's
chair.
talk about physical testing. We can do an entire session about physical penetration testing.
Right.
It is a major interest of mine. Yeah, the smoke pit, just try to make your smoke pits not accessible to people who don't already work in your organization.
Well, that's the thing with logical. So that's kind of the other thing too, is people will leave a back door open. It's just never going to be done right. And kind of my issue with the cost there is physical in many ways is cheaper than logical. I know you guys think I'm nuts probably, but when you're doing logical, actually doing it right you need humans to do a good job and keep everything secure and not take shortcuts. And humans are bad at that. They keep the smoke pits open, they keep the back doors open, despite what your policy is. And yeah, logical separations are a little bit annoying, but the fun thing we mentioned, the ESXi, is hypervisor breakouts. People don't really talk about them too much, but cloud security people hate when you mention that, because if one of those is available, you can just buy an instance on Amazon and then take over all of AWS, as, for example, an attack vector that no one likes to talk about.
Bare metal?
Yeah, I love automating bare metal.
I mean, it's 100% true. Like, when I'm in your environment trying to hack stuff, I'm not looking for 0 days. I'm not looking for, like, exploits with buffer overflows. I'm looking for the dumbest decisions your admins made because they're in a hurry and they got too much on their plate. And, like, if I was lazy and not particularly caring about my job very much, what would I decide to do? Would I leave the default credentials on this, and after I, added domain credentials to it? Yeah, I probably would. Let's try that. And that works. It's been working for me for like a decade. I built an entire career out of guessing default credentials, so.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good evidence to show some of the greatest hacks that we see in the news. The methods are old school methods. They are not fancy pants, brand new off the hacker website methods. They are tried and true. I love that. The dumbest thing that your admin has done. There's still a lot of low-hanging fruit, and I think that just understanding the threat surface in your factory. People really have to understand what they have there and how people are going to get in. I thought our first presentation of the day was a perfect example of, that was easy to break that lock. So now we're in.
I would just put a bunch of squirrels in your factory and let them loose, right? Or big birds aimed at your turbines. But I've seen all kinds of things in environments where they're relying on common Active Directory forests, or even if they have their own, then they have too many people and contractors with domain admin, and they have nested groups, and they don't manage their groups well. I mean, these kind of things are easy paths in once you find them, right?
Very much so. Different domains where we just have the same accounts with the same passwords in each domain. Domains that are members of the same forest. So if you pop one domain, you can escalate to the forest and go over. Nestled groups, there's tools out there. Bloodhound is a great one for kind of like mapping out your environment. If you're just hearing about Bloodhound because it came out of my mouth now, go ahead and write that down. You'll want to run it in your environment and freak the hell out. But
Or be blind to it.
just you don't.
You don't see Bloodhound?
Oh, no, yeah, check out Bloodhound. But yeah, it's disturbingly easy once someone's inside. As far as like weak passwords, like the manufacturing floor, post-it notes, like they're there. They're under. They don't even hide them sometimes. It just be like password. Something you see like, oh yeah, change the password, so they'll cross out the old password.
Well, you've got shifts.
Yeah.
Coming in to work, and you have to communicate things, and you don't want people to forget, oh, the temp is on today, so make sure you put that. It's like at the doctor's office. The smartest people in the world when it comes to saving you from some disease, but they just give their RSA tokens and their Post-its with the passwords to their interns.
John, I have a comment about
All right.
I was just thinking about it a little bit after Ricardo started talking, as another use for your red team skills. I was an operations manager working for the Air Force for a number of years. It was a ground station testing space shuttles and various spaceborne assets. And as we all can attest, you always have problems with software versions. You know, as you're working through things, a lot of problems can be, identified by, we got this little glitch here. And a lot of times you feel like, let's go back to the previous revision, and that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It might be a propagating error. And so I eventually brought on someone like Carlos here, that I called him Captain Crunch, was my nickname for him, because what I did was I hired him to test every version of every app that we had to death and document, and that's the important word here, document what he was learning, okay, and put as much detail as possible in every rev. And every Monday, and I mean this, every Monday, we had a configuration meeting to discuss the configuration. Every Monday. Sometimes we go back a configuration, sometimes we go forward a configuration. But when you have 250 software developers, you're changing things all the time, you know. And sometimes it's all the way down on the module level, sometimes it's the subroutine level, sometimes it's firmware, you know. So we would document all of that so that at every point in time, we knew Monday to Monday the version, or we thought we knew, the version of software that we're using to test these satellites. I mean, we're talking $30 billion assets, you know. So a person like you was probably my most valuable person because they were trained to break it. Try and break it, and if you're successful, tell me how you did it.
But I think you're highlighting a really important aspect, and that is to build in a cybersecurity culture. Because we know, you know, small and medium manufacturers, they have limited budget. We don't want to break the budget. Find a list of things to do and to get into a cadence, a regular cadence of actually addressing the issues as they come up, the ones that are going to take you down, address them, and keep doing that as a, you know, if we think of the continuous improvement concept. I know that a lot of plants are too busy making stuff to stop and do this, but if you build it into the process and you spend time on a weekly, monthly basis of actually moving and improving the overall basis in the environment, I think you can actually do a lot of really good stuff. But getting started, it seems like it's a huge capacitor. We're not getting people to just get started to do something. Yeah, that's my T-shirt. Is like, you know, pick a framework and go. You know, whatever it is, pick something and start. And I think that's one of the ways that we can help improve cybersecurity within the manufacturing environments that don't already have that security culture in place.
Yeah, I think the, you distracted me, Ray. I lost track. Important thing with small companies, small, medium-sized businesses, when they have an outage, when they have something that because they're not doing anything, the consequences are much worse for them. They may go right out of business. That might be it. They don't have the resilience, the bank account of one of our big Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies.
It's interesting with ransoms, it's almost was one of the best things ever for security, which I know is a controversial thing to say, but a lot of times the focus was always uptime, uptime, uptime. Oh, don't do a security patch because we might go down. Now that ransomware actually causes downtime, now the CIO actually cares about security, unlike before.
Yeah, if something isn't resilient, if it's risky that it might stop working, whether it's a hacker or whether it's a configuration or a mismatch in software, it doesn't matter. If an outage is an outage. You had a question?
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Very helpful, very insightful. A quick question around the topic around security recommendations and the lack of budgets, financing that prevent those from being in place. Have any of you seen some precedents for being able to make a case with higher paid help that controls the budgets around security mitigation efforts for OT that actually help lower cybersecurity insurance premiums? There are a lot of, from the manufacturing space, insurance premiums have gone up, in some cases quadrupled, and coverage has gone down significantly. Have you had visibility or experience to being able to make that case around getting budget for those to be able to reduce those premiums and get better coverage?
I mean, I could just speak real briefly. I was recently asked if my firm, I know that certain organizations offering cybersecurity insurance have preferred testing partners. So if you get a penetration test or you have security work done through one of those partners, there is some discount on that insurance. That said, my firm isn't one of those. We're pretty small and not really on their radar. But that's pretty much all I got.
Anyone here from insurance? Perfect. You guys are so out of whack when it comes to OT.
Yes.
The OT questions that you get from your cybersecurity insurance providers right now are so tailored from IT to OT. Like they're like, make sure you patch it every 30 seconds. on all your OT environment, and it's just Booleans, yes or no. So I think there's a lot of education that still needs to happen on the underwriter level, specifically related to OT. We recently did our renewal, and a lot of the questions around OT are still very binary, very legacy-driven, really don't reflect appropriately what an OT environment truly is. So I think there's still that more partnership that I think us as security professionals really need to push the agenda of our underwriters to make a difference to ensure that they're seen in those right lens. Again, nothing's going to be perfect, but you can't easily just apply a broad brush approach that says, all right, make sure there's agents on every PLC to protect firmware revisions. Good luck with that. Again, you could highlight new plans that could do that, or you could prioritize them, but they also don't take into account compensating controls.
You are so right, and it's I mean,
gross.
that's why I'm going to give a huge shout out to MxD, because there actually is some way to educate OT things to security auditors. So, quick story about just how bad that is. So there was a company, should remain nameless, and they had true air gaps, true physical controls. They're a small business. They pulled it off, and this was an auditor from a company that also provides cloud services, different division, and they suggested that the air gaps be connected to the internet. Why? Why? Because not remote patching, which would make at least maybe 1% of sense, but also be a not so good idea, so that they could install IDS to check off that box. And so I really hope with insurance premiums, they talk to people who know what they're talking about, and by that also play offense, because could you train a football team's defense without offense on the practice squad? No, not at all. Checking boxes won't work, and I hope the insurance industry evolves. And so, sorry for that rant there, but I'm just, Ricardo, so much so, like that's.
But to be fair, I think we own part of that problem. We haven't been we haven't had that strong partnership with our underwriters. And I think one of the things I'm going to work on this year is meet with them more often. Everyone's like, ooh, you don't want to meet with them.
Thank you.
You need to meet with them and push your agenda and provide more of the appropriate lens where they should be assessing the risk, not just from their Boolean approach, but compensating controls, improved processes, and appropriate for that specific industry. All manufacturing is not created equally. And rant.
All right, we have a
Anatoly.
question from the audience.
Yeah, how much does the business really know about the risks that they face on the manufacturing end? Now, the reason why I ask this is because when I was at the Kellogg Company and I was a CISO there, the biggest manufacturing plant we had is in Omaha, where they run some very specialized software that the business in Battle Creek did not know about. And it was causing so much vulnerabilities there, you know, but they were fine. They made a lot of money. However, when the business understood the real significance of that, they said, look, you've got to have, you know, a 2-year plan to get off on this. You know, we're all talking about all these vulnerabilities that are there, but my guess is that most people in the business, you know, if they knew the true vulnerabilities that they were facing, they're not going to want to just say, yeah, just go ahead and be doing what you're doing. So my question, therefore, is based on your own experience, you know, do you think the businesses are really willing to accept the weaknesses, you know, that are being created by some of the systems we had? I mean, we still have some people who have some plans that have, you know, SQL 7 servers that are running, and because they're making money and everything, you know, it's all fine. But the guys, you know, who actually make the decisions are not aware of the real dangers here.
Yeah, is that your job to make those connections and to tell that story and to communicate that to the right people? Whose responsibility is that?
I think it's security and the business, and it's everyone. All right, let's just be honest. It can't just be security crying wolf saying, oh, there's all these vulnerabilities, your downtime's gonna be approximately XYZ if there's a breach, because then you're playing to the FUD game. You really want to discuss the availability and the timing and working with them to upgrade the systems, if you can even upgrade them. I know exactly what you're talking about, and for us, it runs plant by plant. Some plants are more, not susceptible, are more amicable to doing upgrades or making changes here or there. But I think as an industry, we are stuck with, it's been working like this for the last 20 years. Just don't touch it. Don't even look at it. And I think it's a big cultural change that I think we all need to push together. I report to the board all the time, all the issues we have, and we can do these little compensating controls here or there, but making that big impactful is a grassroots effort for changing the culture. Adam, wait, Anatoly first.
Well,
I
we're,
wanna
we're,
add it to- yeah, I
we're
think
about
we're
out
gonna-
of time, so.
Yeah, but I think that there is, I think the bias that we see in the small, medium manufacturers still exists very strong. Why would anybody want to hack me? And I think that is, right, I think that there's still a perception that people don't understand the mentality of cyber criminals and why they are just one piece of a larger supply chain. I think that we have to change that message. I think kind of ending on that note. So I'm agreeing with
No,
you.
that's great. I wanted to have the panel give some closing thoughts. So you started us. You can pass that off to Parker, and we'll have your closing thoughts before we finish.
So I'm thinking with OT, there's a lot of issues with, if safety was first with anything, we wouldn't have food. Do you think you'd ever get crab from the Bering Sea? So we have to have some risk, but actually manage it. And the best way to know the risk is actually go through those scenarios, and then also nice simple fixes. If there's humans somewhere with logical controls, reality versus what you think reality is can be different. So simple, and make sure that even the mom and pop manufacturers have some red teaming experience, which I know is kind of insane to say, but people love to play around and hack stuff. Let them learn that. Let them learn how to play some offense, I think.
I mean, I'm biased, so of course I'll agree entirely with that. In general, the C-suite I interact with, the clients that I serve, they see the value in the work that I do, and they don't use it just as an opportunity to like come in and show this organization what the flaws are. Oftentimes they know what the issues and the flaws are. They're using security testing, offensive red teaming as a tool to drive their overall security goals. They want to motivate their organization to take certain actions, to make improvements, and they're using the scary hacker that they hired to come in and say, like, look, this is what can happen. This is not a theoretical. This is, this guy was one keystroke away from shutting everything down if he wanted to. So I'm handing it to Rico now.
Yep.
Hi. Tech's only 30% of the problem. The rest is process, people, and awareness. Going back to really highlighting to the board, executive management, to make that cultural change. We can always buy tech, but changing the minds and really moving that mentality of, it's always been working, and being more collaborative, I think the approach that manufacturing really needs to grow up in.
All right. Please help me thank the panel, and thank you for attending.
And thank you, John. Great job. All right. I would like to introduce. Do you have a presentation up?
Should be on there, yeah.
You're not at all like.
Yes, I know. It's opposite.
It's just this one slide. No, there should be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're. Probably. Let me.
2 minutes. Technical difficulties on our side.
So Fred is the office here, right
Yeah.
here? Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the best business was in Chicago.
Isn't it?
Yeah, we took part in one of the, like that,
Free park.
yeah.
No, that's okay. I won't take it first. Yeah, thanks for.
I'm gonna be following.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Great, yeah. I'm Federico. Oh, sure.
I understand you went through a Phoenix transformation.
That's right, that's right.
I'm going to re-engage. All right. Okay. One more.
No. Oh, yeah.
We on break, you guys?
Seems like, yeah, a couple minutes.
Actually running on time. Let's hope you're not being recorded. Good, we are live.
Right, film?
We are
Evidence?
We are film.
How long break?
What evidence?
Are we back on deck?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
He's in here. Yes.
Almost.
Right. Doesn't look like anyone has. Did you send the presentation?
Yeah, let me just check with the volume.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is it on?
Everything was going so smoothly.
Well, that's fine. I mean, this is usually how it is.